Now, one of the critical tests of Larsen's opening must surely be black occupying the centre, and this is the way that many strong players have met this opening. b3, e5, bishop b2, knight c6, e3, and now black playing the move d5. Now, white can start attacking this pawn on e5 by going bishop b5. And now black's normal reaction has been bishop to d6, after which white can play the pawn to f4, the idea being that if black were to play e takes f4 here, white goes bishop takes g7, which is good for white, but perhaps a little more complicated than may seem at first sight, because black's got a check here. We'll be looking at that a little bit later. Now, after f4, a common reply for black has been to go queen h4 check, which forces white to play his pawn forward one square to g3. Now, you can also play queen e7 immediately, and we'll be coming to that next. It can lead to very similar positions as queen h4 check. So queen h4 check, g3, queen e7, and now after knight f3, in this game black plays his bishop out to g4 to pin this knight against the queen and thus defend e5 once again. So, okay, now the natural move for white is just to take here on e5, and then we get this: bishop takes e5, bishop takes e5, bishop takes f3, queen takes f3, queen takes e5, and now white has got the rook over here on prise, and the obvious move is knight c3. Although, having said that, I think we might also consider playing the pawn forward to d4. I think that's another possible move here for white. Now, after knight c3, then if black were to play knight g7, hoping to avoid double pawns, white can take off here, and then black can't take with the knight because white takes on d5. So knight e7 will not avoid the double pawns. So knight f6 is just a better move. And then we get this position: bishop takes c6 check, b takes c6, castles, castles. Now, this can also arise after the immediate queen e7, because then what we'd get would be knight f3, bishop g4, f takes e5, bishop takes e5, bishop takes e5, take here, queen takes here, knight here, take, take. So this is identical, except that now we don't have a pawn on g3. And I think effectively these positions are rather similar, except with the pawn on g3, white's king may become a little bit weaker later on. So there's probably more incentive for white with the pawn here to exchange queens and try and play an endgame. But in any case, that's probably the right thing for him to do. So let's go back to our stem game here. Castles, castles. Right, now Nimzowitsch plays queen f5, and I think he might well do better here just to play queen f4, which is more likely to persuade black to exchange queens. I mean, he can go back to e7, but queen d6 will probably be the best move. Now, in this sort of position, I think we can safely say that white has got marginally the superior pawn structure, because this set of pawns might conceivably be blockaded. In practice, it's proven very difficult for white to do very much with this, and we're going to see in this game white not get very far. Rook a to e8. Well, this is very logical play from Portish. And now white plays a move that to me looks very risky. He goes after black's a pawn with rook to a4. And instead of this, I'm sure that I think that I and many other people would simply play rook a f1, which looks very natural. I would say the position may be perhaps marginally better for white, but there's not going to be very much in it. I slightly prefer white's pawn structure here, but there again the king is slightly weak. So I would think that the tiny advantage for white perhaps. Now rook a4 on the other hand leads to a very unbalanced position. White now gets this a7 pawn. Well, I think Portisch was not displeased to sacrifice it. He goes c5, and then white brings the rook over, and then black plays this. Takes, knight b5, queen b6, and now white wins this pawn instead. Knight takes d4. But we see black get a pretty strong initiative. His pieces are becoming very active now, and white's king is looking somewhat vulnerable. c4 check, king h1, c takes b3, a takes b3, and there might have been a case for white taking this way. And then black goes rook e2, and now queen comes back to d3, rook fe8, rook d4, h5, so this pawn can also potentially set fire to white's king side by going h4, supports g4, makes room for the king, so he's not in danger of being back rank mated. White's king comes to g1, pawn to a5, rook f2, rook comes back, and now white makes a mistake. He goes knight g5, and probably he should just play his rook back when they might have had a draw by repetition with this move. So instead he goes in here, and he should probably play his rook back again. He goes king g2. Nimzowitsch was young and full of beans at the time of this game, so he was trying to beat Portisch, and for this reason I think was rejecting the possibility of a draw. And now his king is in some considerable trouble. King h4. I certainly wouldn't want to have to play that move. Queen comes to e7, and now this king is in some desperate trouble. Rook f5, rook e2, pawn to h3. Well, it's the king is not getting any better placed now that he's shut in on h4, g6, and he plays rook takes f6, queen takes, rook here, and the queens are exchanged, and white gets this pawn. But now black's rooks are doubled on the 7th, and he's attacking this pawn on c2, and white does not have enough compensation for the exchange, and we see Portisch win this game nicely. In the ensuing moves, takes that pawn off, and the rest is easy. And white resigned here. So that was a typical position that you can get from this variation. Let's just see that position again. This pawn structure here, I think white is a tiny bit better here, but the fact that black can easily get counterplay with his centre pawn c5 and d4 means that it's very difficult to control the position and actually use this slight structural advantage. The position can also come about with this pawn not on g3 but on g2 if black doesn't play queen h4 check but instead goes queen e7. So it's quite an important sort of position. But white doesn't need to take on e5 in this situation. He can instead play the move h3. And that's what we're going to be looking at in the next section. It's an attempt to improve white's play, and I think it's probably a more interesting move for those who like rich middle games, but I'm not sure it gives white any advantage either.